In the media, especially video games, aircraft that crash in battle will see their passengers spared from death. But there's a remarkable tendency for the aircrew, on the other hand, to be the only losses of life.
Casualty report. Paulson and both pilots are dead, sir.
We're operational, ma'am. Barely. Our pilots didn't make it.
The passengers, despite having just survived a fatal crash, will then emerge unharmed, not hampered by even the slightest injury. Anytime you see a crash on screen, the pilots alone almost always die. And do they ever? They're just instantly killed on impact, showing zero signs of life, assuming anyone even checks on them, which a lot of the time they don't. Note that any aircrew in general die, but pilots are the primary victims, simply because they're always a necessary component of a manned aircraft. If they aren't visibly present in a newly laid crash, they must have implicitly died. The reason this caught my attention is because I grew up around certain military aviators. And as a kid, I saw things like the Pelican crews of Halo as deliberate invocations of their image. And that made it frustrating when our heroic protagonists never even seem to check if they're alive in the aftermath of a crash.
Clear the crash site. Go, go, go!
This trend isn't just about games that happen to have something bad happen to a pilot. Let's take a look at some examples demonstrative of this trend. Halo has a good number of Pelican crashes in every game. Some of these you witness, other times you come across the crash after the fact. There may or may not be survivors, but among them will never be the pilots. The only exception where aircrew survives a crash is a single instance in Halo 4. Notably in the level outskirts of Halo 2, the Master Chief, Sergeant Johnson, and a small team of Marines all survive a crash unharmed, the pilots not even being mentioned. You receive a call shortly after from another downed Pelican, stating that the pilots didn't make it. In Halo ODST, a police Pelican rescues you, but is shot down off-screen between levels. The main characters and the nameless cop are okay, but no report on the pilot. What's interesting about this is that it's not just another case of main characters having plot armor, because in most of these situations, even nameless, faceless, generic NPCs are perfectly safe, as long as they're infantrymen. You can see the general pattern happen a lot in Call of Duty as well. With all its spectacle and so many games, there's about a dozen examples. For instance, Call of Duty 4 has the level Hunted, which follows your extraction, getting shot down. Luckily, all the main characters are unscathed, however the pilots are not. Black Ops has an interesting example where the Viet Cong shoot down your Huey, which crashes into a river. One pilot is killed instantly, the other one is trapped. Mason tries to assist, but the pilot is shot by a Viet Cong soldier. Well, at least we know Mason is a good person. Gears of War has the Raven helicopters that end up crashing more often than not, never threatening any main characters that happen to be on board. Now, pilots dying in a game isn't necessarily bad storytelling. I'd expect it to happen a lot as it's a realistic consequence of many video game scenarios. The outcomes of these crashes, as we see in the games, are problematic for a few reasons. First, by now it's cliché. People know to expect it now. People talk about how the shortest lifespan in Resident Evil's BSAA is that of their pilots. Playing a game and seeing a cutscene where a helicopter crashes while your soldier characters ride in the back, you just already know what's gonna happen. Your guys are gonna jump out of a wreck, no worse for wear, ready to sprint and run and gun. Second, I also find that a lot of these deaths go weirdly understated in a way that makes our heroes seem pretty cold. I'm not expecting our heroes to be on their knees crying for somebody they didn't know. People mock Leon for his overwrought Morning of Helicopter Mike in Resident Evil 4, but even that is a step up from the total apathy you usually see.
Mike!
In that moment, I felt heard. Thanks for caring, Leon. Most of the time when a video game protagonist is involved in a helicopter crash, he will not even care about the safety of the crew at all. It's especially disconcerting in the aftermath of a rescue of the protagonist. How about a little gratitude for the guy who died saving your life? You never see anyone check the pilot's pulse or anything like that. It tends to feel as if the developers themselves simply forgot that these vehicles were supposed to have a pilot, or just wanted to wash their hands of the complexity of dealing with such a person. The third issue is the logic of it. These deaths are often improbable and dubious. There are so many cases where the pilots are the only ones to die. They are dead instantly while everyone else is completely unharmed, ready to fight their best fight. And this is just silly, especially when you consider that the pilot is in a more secure seat in a lot of these aircraft, while the troops might not even be seated at all and are almost never strapped in. The dynamics of an aircraft crash are pretty complicated, but generally people who are not in a secure seat are going to have the worst odds. If a crash is dangerous enough to outright immediately kill the guy in a secure seat 9 times out of 10, you'd expect the other people aboard would be worse off, but they have infantry plot armor. The guy standing around unsecured in the back at least shouldn't be combat ready at 100% HP, but for the average video game protagonist, a fatal helicopter crash causes less damage than a cigarette. It would be pretty unlikely for a single crash to produce such widely varied results. So why does this happen? Well, as far as the narrative is concerned, a pilot doesn't serve any purpose beyond flying the machine. And if the machine is broken, that is an extraneous element of the story, so the path of least resistance is to simply kill the pilot along with it. This also helps to give the impression of the protagonists facing tangible danger rather than being perfectly safe. What some games could do, perhaps, is to have a pilot not simply operate as any other infantryman. If they were to sell you on this being a pilot, though, he'd need to look different and have different dialogue. There might even be an expectation that he act differently, not like an aggressive infantryman and more like someone who's visibly out of his element. This is starting to sound like a lot of effort, so you can already imagine why pilots are just killed off from a resource-saving perspective. And all that effort might just be a waste or even counterproductive. A pilot's specialty is also just a narrative distraction when the pace of a game shifts to ground combat. Their presence could create a player focus issue. A pilot's assumed skill set is literally on another dimension, and their appearance usually leaves them looking woefully out of place firing a rifle and dodging grenades. Any vulnerability they display fighting out of their element could be an unnecessary tonal shift and a major distraction from your infantry cool guy stuff. Make no mistake, I know why this happens, but games really need to figure out more creative solutions at this point, because not only is this a cliche, it's a wasted opportunity. A bit of in-game personality can go a long way for the memorability of a game. To have these characters accompany the player even for a short time could be a memorable display of personality, showing us a side of the Force that is in a bit more of a vulnerable position than your usual gung-ho grunt. Something like the crewmen of Halo, who, lacking in armor and infantry training, stand in stark contrast to the confident Marines. Their presence at the front line paints a clear picture of the desperation and chaos that you find yourself in at the start of Halo. The effort to include them paid off.
They're everywhere! I'm on it!
Obviously, the game is going to feel more lively when not every single person has the same personality. And that payoff is something games deliberately shut down whenever they kill off your pilots.
Crew's dead, we shouldn't stay here.
As a convenient way to usher you back into the action.